I hope you're excited and ready for another episode of Wokepedia where we have a guest on this week to discuss more about Lecrae and how he employs standpoint epistemology. If that's a scary term, don't worry, we're going to define it. But we want to make something clear right off the bat. And this isn't an idle thing. When we talk about someone on Wikipedia, that's an invitation for them to come on. And again, doubling down on it, making it clear. Lecrae, you are invited to come on. We would love to talk with you. We would love to have a discussion back and forth and bring clarity to things. But until that point, we have to go off what you said.
Welcome to the Wokepedia Podcast. The Wokepedia Podcast is a ministry of Enemies Within the Church. You can go to enemieswithinthechurch.com to, view the documentary if you haven't already. Get yourself a copy, DVD, Blu-ray, or stream it online. You can also click on Wokepedia at the top, although you might want to be stay tuned for next week because we're going to be having a major announcement, and that button's going to be changing to something new. But until then, click on the Wikipedia button to see what we have going on. Now, what are we going to be talking about today? Well, we're going to be talking about Lecrae. And the question is, should you follow him or should you say no way? But for those that are watching on video, you might notice something different. We have a guest today. We have Jason here from Dear Woke Christian. Now, if you haven't heard of Dear Woke Christian, you can go to his podcast on YouTube or his channel on YouTube. I don't know if you technically call it a podcast or not. Let you choose your own terms.
It's a podcast. It's a video. It's hopefully something that they can find edifying.
Mm-hmm. But you can go to Dear Woke Christian on YouTube. Check out his channel. Check out his videos. He does a lot of good responses to similar topics that we cover, including Lecrae, which is why we're all here together. So check out some of his videos, give, like, subscribe, things like that. Yes. And while we're talking about it, we would appreciate the same kind of things. We're producing content that we hope is valuable, edifying, something that's useful not just to you, but for others. If you look at it and say, hey, my friend is dealing with some of these issues, asking questions about this, or he's bought into these ideologies, share it with them. That's why we make these resources. We want them to be used. But we're going to be talking about Lecrae. And what are we going to be talking about? Jordan, what are we going to be talking about with Lecrae? Because we have a more specific focus. We've talked about how he is woke. But what's our focus for today?
Yes, hello everybody. So today, our focus is going to be Lecrae's usage of standpoint epistemology. Now, with most woke terms, it is a very fancy sounding term for something that's really not that fancy. But we're going to get into what it is, an example of it, and then we're going to see Lecrae using it, and we'll be able to see, once we've got a working definition of how Lecrae is applying standpoint epistemology in his thinking and why that is destructive to the body of Christ. So
so let's go ahead and set the scene real quick. Now, if you are unfamiliar with the term standpoint epistemology, there's another term that you might be immediately familiar with, and it's called my truth. My truth.
My truth.
I'm sure you've probably heard people say that before. Well, that's your truth, but my truth is, that's the same thing that we're talking about. We did 2 episodes on that with Dr. Bill Roach. You can go listen to those. Those will be linked. And if you're watching on YouTube, those will have just popped up on the screen. But as a super brief understanding of what standpoint epistemology, what the idea of my truth is, it's the idea that your standpoint, your position, your, in this case, talking about woke world, where you line up on the intersectional scale, your level of oppression determines your access to truth. So if you are a straight white Christian male, you can only see a tiny, tiny, narrow slit of reality. But as you climb that scale until you reach I think it's the current pinnacle, is a trans black woman or man. I don't know what you say there.
It depends on how many levels of intersectionality you're able to claim. A straight white Christian man has zero intersectionality. So
Yep.
From there, I mean, so right, you're the ultimate oppressor. So anywhere you are on the spectrum further away is really how much further away you are from straight white Christian man. Mm-hmm. That, like a straight white Christian woman is a little bit less, is a level of oppressed, but again, like you're saying, a transgender Southerner who's a Muslim, well, they're greater, they're more oppressed than
there you go.
Straight white male. So
Yep.
Yeah.
And so this kind of dictates what you can and cannot know. What going along with the idea of my truth is the idea of the lived experience. You hear this phrase a lot. My lived experience. Mm-hmm. Specifically, when they talk about lived experience, they're referring to a lived experience of oppression, of being mistreated or treated unfairly somehow.
Fair.
And and if you are in one of the privilege categories, for example, white, then you do not have the access to the lived experience of someone who's not white who might experience oppression. So if they say they're oppressed because of the level of melanin in their skin, you're blinded to that because of your privilege. So you have to just kind of shut up and listen and believe whatever they tell you.
They have a view of reality, a view of truth that not just you do not have because you have not experienced it, i.e. experiential knowledge. I can know about woodworking, but I'm not a woodworker. Obviously, a woodworker is going to have a superior level of knowledge because he's performed the task.
Correct.
I can only understand it in theory. That's not what we're talking about. Mm-hmm. We're not talking about practical knowledge. We're talking about I cannot know. I can never become a woodworker. That knowledge is permanently locked to me because of my standpoint, which is we thought we're going to talk about this, so we thought we'd bring someone on and we'd listen to their lived experiences.
Absolutely.
So, Jason, Are you ready for us to just grovel before you and listen to your lived experiences? Because Jordan and I, we do not understand.
And
Can you enlighten us?
I feel oppressed by you, but I will send you my Cash App. I will send you my Cash App, and you can fix that. So let me drop that in there.
Jason, I don't have any money, but what I can do is I can find out where you are and then bow before you and shine your shoes.
I'm wearing socks, and that's going to be really weird. That's going to be really awkward. Yeah, we're going to let's actually cut that out. Let's cut that out. Okay.
For those of you who don't know, that was a Lecrae joke because Lecrae had the CEO of Chick-fil-A bow before him and shine his shoes on live TV. It was great content.
So, but frankly, we're going to go into some clips of Lecrae. We're going to show how Lecrae does use standpoint epistemology. He heavily leans on it to create his worldview. But, Jason.
Yes, sir.
When you hear people talk like that, this is going to be kind of a funny sentence because it's going to almost sound like we're employing it for a second. We're not. When you hear people talk like that, how does it make you feel? Does it make you feel empowered as a person? Or does it make you feel like they're treating you like a toddler?
If they were talking to me, then I would have some kind of feeling about that. If they're talking to somebody else, or, for example, we're going to be talking about Lecrae, him taking this on almost as like a spokesperson, I choose not to participate in that foolishness. So therefore, I don't know what you're talking about. He might as well be talking about somebody on the dark side of the moon because that's not me. I know that and we're going to talk from a natural sense for a moment. I know that there's a lot that I need to do that I can fix and resolve my own problems right here. And has 100% zero issue with my white neighbor right here or my white neighbor right here, the one that lives in front of me. It has nothing to do with them. It is 100% locked in this house and in this studio as I'm talking right now. So it has nothing to do with my neighbors. It's me. Now, from a spiritual standpoint, it makes God look like it makes God like just any other idol. Any other idol that is inept to resolve human issues in time. So just like this cup, if I were worshiping this cup, would not be able to resolve my issues, they make God the exact same. Christ didn't do anything. Christ could not fix the evilness in my heart or the evilness in Jordan's or Kyle's heart to the degree that Kyle and Jordan would stop being evil and wicked toward me or me being wicked toward them. None of that can be resolved because, Jesus is just the same as this cup. I mean, nothing more. And to me, now that is the part that I find most egregious when we minimize the gospel. We minimize what God has done. And I think I mentioned it to you all when we were sharing our notes. I don't ever hear Lecrae fighting for the faith. I do hear him contending for his ideas all the time.
Yeah.
But I don't hear him actually fending for the faith and saying, hey, this is the gospel center person. This is the gospel center man, center woman. I don't hear that. I do hear him, however, as we're going to hear in your clips, Kyle, talking about the wonderfulness of his ideas, I guess. I don't know. So that's how I feel about it. But, hey, my name is Dear Woke Christian, dearwokec@gmail.com. If you have a concern, question, or comment about what I just said. Thank you so much.
Man, I think we're going to have a absolutely stunning episode today. I hope everyone sticks with it because we are having fun today.
I'm here for it.
And let's roll right into a clip to start showing, because that's what we're all about. We're all about backing up what we say. We're not just saying, hey, Lecrae uses standpoint epistemology. Let's show it.
Let's go.
So clip number 1.
And I think that's part of the issue is you just can't see it unless you walk in those shoes. Like you can't sit here and ask me, what's life like in China? I don't know. I don't live in China. I don't experience the things that people experience in China. So it's ignorant for me to be like, that doesn't happen or it's not real. It's like, well, do you really have these relationships? And then, you look at 95% of people on social media, their friends look just like them. You know what I mean? So it's like, when was the last time you had in-depth conversations with people of other ethnicities and races and whatever, and asked them what their day-to-day realities are like, And so.
I'm sorry, man.
I'm just going to say that's very mild. And I would forgive.
I know.
I would forgive people that look at that and go, well, yeah, he doesn't live in China, so he doesn't know what China is like. But is that what he's actually saying? Is he saying, I don't have this understanding? Or is he locking knowledge behind someone's perspective?
A paywall. He's locking knowledge behind a paywall. Because I guarantee you, if somebody, somehow or another, because please keep in mind, Lecrae is in the new crypto market, which is victimhood. If he could trade those victim points in, he would give you access to that knowledge. So it wouldn't matter that you weren't born in China. It wouldn't matter that you don't have all your social media looks like your friends. I don't know how I missed that part. That was actually comical. I should have watched these again because that right there jumped out. I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you absolutely kidding me? But no. If you're willing to trade something on his victim crypto market, he'll give you access to the market. So I guarantee you, somebody said, hey, Lecrae, I'm gonna write you a check for $200 million. You would have access to that market. You would have no problems. That you would be completely exonerated of all your white sin. But okay. DearWokec@gmail.com. And please email management if you have concerns. I'm telling you. Please email management. We're operators are standing by.
He's trading in on this currency of victimhood, as you say, and also he's speaking right now. If you watch the full clip, he's speaking in the context of his experience as a black man in America, his being oppressed. He talks about when he's on an airplane and he sees different movies and there's not enough black characters in the movies and that corporations are run by white people. He gives all these different examples of how non-white people are oppressed. And so he's not just talking about, it's being someone is different than not being someone and hearing about their story. What he's saying is, I'm oppressed, and if you don't see the evidence for it, that's because you're blinded by your privilege.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That is
He's
correct.
using standpoint epistemology as a weapon to stab at people who do not agree with him. It's manipulative. It's
Absolutely.
100% manipulative. He's not trying to convince you of his position. He's trying to manipulate you, to guilt you, to attack your feelings, to get you to agree with him. What would we call someone who does that? If this was a relationship,
Call him a manipulator.
put us in a relationship with Lecrae.
Yeah.
We went down a weird road here, but if it was a relationship, what would you say about him? I think you'd rightly label him as an abuser.
That's fair.
I
don't disagree.
That's the honest thing we got to do. We got to call a spade a spade. What he's doing is manipulative and it's abusive, which is really ironic when he's all about correcting oppression. And his tactic for doing that is to then manipulate, abuse, and what's another word for that? Oppress others.
Iron law of woke projection never misses.
It is very, very true. Do you guys want to jump on to the next clip, or is there any other fun things we should say about this one?
I mean, I don't know. I remember some of the other clips. I just hope that people are willing to listen to what is being said. This episode is brought to you in part by LaCroix in honor of Lecrae. I see that right there. I see it. I hope people are willing to listen. We're not just slamming and dunking on Lecrae.
Yeah.
Okay, wait, I might actually be doing that. However, I know that you two gentlemen are not. And we want people to actually listen to what is being said, because at the end of the day, the gospel is so much better. The gospel is so much better. Like literally, I believe I'm speaking for you gentlemen fairly. We believe that the gospel can resolve real bona fide issues that we might have, that you might have in your home or in your church or your school or your job. The gospel is the solution.
Yeah.
And
amen.
So we want people to realize that. So when you do come to face with real bona fide animus and partiality between people groups, you know you had the same thing that saved you when you were dead in your trespasses and sins is the same thing that is effective right now to deal with your the horrible situation that you might be faced with. It's the gospel, not this fake, made up, oppressive clownery. Because a lot of the time, most of what they're talking about is an oppression. You're not oppressed because they're not black actors on movies that are being streamed on your airline. Dudes, please stop. That just sounds mentally retarded. I'm sorry, Lecrae, dearwokec@gmail.com. I'm right here in Marietta, Georgia, if you want to meet up and talk. That just sounds retarded, bro. There's real issues. Now, there are issues that we could really say, but they're not as many. It's not the boogie monster under every bush and behind every tree is oppression. No, it's not. Just because somebody is on a plane, I mean, for crying out loud, you're on a plane. You're in the back of the plane. You pick your seat and you can watch a movie and there's not a lot of black people on it. Are you absolutely kidding me? Okay, I'm sorry.
Well, it's true. I have not heard a woke person, someone that's given into woke ideologies. I have not heard them frame it in a way that does not rely on first world problems.
Mm-hmm.
They're not, they're resting on just ridiculous amounts of luxury and then saying there's oppression. And it's
because it doesn't work. It doesn't work in other countries. Kind of like the prosperity gospel doesn't actually work in other. Because please keep in mind, woke ideology is the other side of the coin for the prosperity gospel.
Yep. Name it and claim it becomes blame it and claim it.
There you go. Blame it and shame it. Hold it. Write that down. Wait, I got to write that one down. That's good. Name it, claim it, blame it, shame it. Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. I am writing that thing down because it's going to be a thing. It might be a shirt. But no, that's what it is. That's exactly what it is. It's just the other side of the coin. And so we're not actually looking at something different. We're actually looking at the exact same plug nickel that is fake and phony in the prosperity gospel as we are with the this woke ideology and clownery. And yeah, like you said, it most of you is hard pressed to show me woke ideology effective in a third world country where everybody's poor. It's a first world problem. So what do you got, Jordan?
I think you said it. You know, it's oppression that is manufactured. The as many people have pointed out, the demand for racism has now exceeded the supply, and so they have to find. It would be one thing if, systemic. If they didn't attack on the word systemic to racism, right? If they were just calling out racism and then looking for specific examples where people are being racist and calling it out, we could get behind that. But when you attach the word systemic to it, now you have to prove that the entire system, the way everything operates, the way all people speak, the way all the laws are organized, the way the whole society is structured is somehow racist, and you have to find the racist boogeyman around every corner, and that's where you lose.
Yeah.
And might I also just add, that's why I say that this is a different religion, because now I think, and I think it's fair to say in the Christian faith, we fully understand that it's not the gun that is the center. It is Kyle, is Jason, is Jordan, is the person that's wielding the gun that is the center that does sinful things with the gun or the rock or the baseball bat or the crowbar. However, in this situation, they're saying like the manufacturing process of a gun is racist. How? Like the manufacturing process of whole milk is racist. How? Like it doesn't. Like but see, that's a different religion. Like that's making sin. That's saying that the microphone is the center because I'm using the microphone. Like that doesn't make sense. But as I said before, I really want and hope that people will hear our plea to just think about what is being said robustly and say, well, really? Have you ever seen somewhere where God has said that a thing or a system by itself is sinful? I don't see that. It is the people that use it and the people that do it and the people involved in it that create sin. But he never said like, in the Old Testament, he's given an example of them taking a tree and chopping it down and using some of it for an idol and some of it to cook and some of it to warm themselves with. He didn't say that the tree was evil, it was what they were doing with it. But, okay, so, wow, we have a lot of show left to go. Let's get going.
No, that's all good stuff. It ties in so well with several things we've been talking about recently on previous episodes. And I'll put some links, if you want to dive deeper into many of the aspects we said, I'll put links down below. And Jason, if there's any content that you have that expands upon some of the stuff we talked about, give it to me. And those links will be in the description of this as well. The whole point is to create a network of resources. But let's look at another clip of Lecrae, because we had so much fun with it the first time around. Let's do it again.
Circumstances and situations where the use of force is being employed unnecessarily, right? And lives are being lost because of that. And that's just at a human level. And I think people are wondering, well, what do these isolated situations have to do with race? And are we just, kind of arbitrarily bringing race into the picture? But what I would suggest is that history always informs people's perspectives on the things that we're looking at. So for Black people, I think we think in terms of a collective vantage point or a collective history and in a collective culture. I don't know if my white brothers and sisters would go to a restaurant and see a white person kind of acting crazy and think, oh, what are we doing? I think they would say, what is he doing? But for Black people, if we go into a restaurant and we see a Black person acting crazy, there's a sense in us that say, man, what are we doing?
Jason, are you a collectivist?
No. However, I do understand what he's saying. There is a collective.
I'm curious to hear this.
I don't know what they call it, like third degree cringe. Is that what they call it? Third degree embarrassment? Now, there's a cringe element when you see things. Well, yes, I'll speak for me. When Jason sees things that do not demonstrate a good picture of what I know that what I would believe would be the best depiction of people that look like me, then yeah, I do get that third degree embarrassment or cringe or whatever they call it. So there is a level in a way in which I agree with him on that. However, we don't have he makes it sound like we're the Borg or something, some kind of collective hive mind or something crazy. No. Now, granted again, I don't know if people of less melanin experience that, where they do kind of look at other people of less melanin, maybe that are doing something, just doing something wild or whatever like that, and they feel, yeah, I mean, in some degree, he's right. However, I know I feel that way, but it can't be all of us, because one of us is the one that's actually doing the thing. So it can't be a collective hive mind, because otherwise the hive mind would tell them not to do it. I mean, come on. So it makes no sense. It's kind of silly. However, again, there is a collective embarrassment, and I think it's really holdover from our parents, maybe even our grandparents, aunts and uncles, that really wanted us to stand up and put our best face forward to demonstrate that we were raised right, that we know something, that we're not just people that have no home training, no culturing or whatever like that. And sadly, I think that element has died off, and this new generation, my generation included, are not really teaching our children to behave in that manner and to feel some level of, but it's really a level of shame. And we don't live in a shame society anymore now at all. That's all people, that they can see something and be like, I'm shamed by that. I'm ashamed to talk about this, whatever. Now, I mean, they'll turn a podcast on about it and just talk about whatever they feel like it. So
I think I would object to is it seems to me like he's saying that he feels like each individual melanated person is a representative of the totality of the collective group. And so if somebody's acting a fool in that group, they are tarnishing the reputation of the entire collective, which is not a biblical concept. You know, we take individual responsibility for our own lives, and we are representatives of Christ, and we want to represent him well in our lives.
No, I agree.
So last week's episode on Nehemiah and how the woke abused that. Nehemiah did have this collective responsibility, this collective, we're using the term embarrassment. We can say collective embarrassment. I think if you are in rebellion against God, then yeah, you're probably going to be embarrassed about it. But one of the things that go listen to that episode. But one of the things with that is Nehemiah was saying, I am a participant in this.
Correct.
This is not a collective in the sense of, that sort of like hive mind or that sort of group us together. It's, I'm embarrassed because I'm part of this situation. We're all doing this together. We're all participants in this.
Another great example would be Daniel's prayer. I mean, again, we are in rebellion. So yes, I agree with you. Just another, because you hear Daniel mentioned a lot. A lot of people bring up Daniel about collective repentance.
Yep.
And I like, no, that's not actually. Daniel was actually a part of the sinful crowd. He was actually a part of it. Whether he did it or not, he's a part of it. So we're not in exile. So miss me.
Yeah.
But
go ahead. I wanted to just point out too. He says that some people who might disagree with his position would say that they might look at these isolated incidents and say that they're arbitrarily bringing up race for no reason, and he really did nothing to refute that. He just said, well, we think in terms of a collective. That's his answer to the objection, and he does nothing to to actually bring up statistical data, for example, that would show that, a white person is just as likely as a black person to be shot unarmed. You had the case of Tony Timpa, who died with an officer with a knee on his neck. He was a white man, almost identical situation to George Floyd, even worse in some ways, and yet you never heard of it because he was white. It didn't fit the narrative. So he kind of owned himself a little bit there because he brought up an objection that he couldn't answer.
Yeah,
I agree.
And it's not even so. In the past, it was bring up something that you can't defend, and then bring up anecdotal evidence to support it.
Correct.
Lecrae didn't even do that because he didn't give an actual anecdote that proves that there's a systemic issue. He said, no, if theoretically, so we're now into theoretical. I went to a restaurant and I saw someone that looked like me. I'd be embarrassed for them. Therefore, we are a collective. Therefore, systemic racism exists.
See, that's why I say I want people to hear us and say, it's okay to push back. It's okay to ask more questions. You don't have to buy into this because I don't think that he made a good point at all. So if you chose to say, yeah, I don't want to do that. Before I burn down a city, I probably want to hear a little bit more about why I burned down a city. And I think if you did that, you would clearly see this is an empty statement, an empty argument that doesn't need to get your full attention at all. What do you think, Jordan?
Yeah, I mean, completely empty. There's, not much that he's able to bring up because it's all. There's really no. You'll notice with Lecrae that there's not a lot of evidence for claims. There are a lot of kind of manipulations and deflections. There are a lot of you need to listen and be sensitive. You need to be a compassionate person, implying that if you don't agree that you're not compassionate. So there's a lot of manipulation that goes on here, but there's not a lot in the way of actual substantive arguments that can be made. Yeah. I mean, at least if you're going to go this route, at least try to spin some statistics or something to make some kind of argument, but he doesn't even bother doing that. So he just, I think his audience, he's just preaching to the choir. He's only talking to people who already agree with him. He's not trying to convince outsiders.
I might push back on that a little bit. I think he's trying to reach, at the minimum, he's trying to reach the people that are on the fence. He's trying to reach the people that might not fully agree with them, but are sympathetic. Which is really kind of the battlegrounds right now, is the sympathetic people. We're trying to rescue the sympathetic people that are being abused by people like Lecrae, and they're trying to capture those sympathetic people. Now, the problem is the way that society's going is we're creating more and more sympathetic people because of just bad teaching. Now, one thing I want to say is if Lecrae disagrees with us, if he thinks he does give substantive answers to things, evidence, reason, things that solid things that you can sink your teeth into, if Lecrae thinks that, he's welcome to come on here. Absolutely 100% welcome. We push for people to come on. We push to talk with people that disagree with us. So if he wants to come on here and disagree, do it. Absolutely do it. We would love that conversation.
I agree.
But let's do another clip. And I think this reveals something that's important and definitely worth talking about.
The people who were leading Bible studies were quoting authors and stuff. And I was like, yo, who are these authors? I never heard of them before. So then I would start reading their books or skimming through their books. And then I was like, oh, shoot, this is actually very intellectual. And that appealed to me. So I was very attracted by the intellectual side of Christianity, which was mostly white men.
Yeah. Did you know that at the time that it was mostly white men, or was it just a name on a book?
It was just a name on a book, but it was like subconscious, or you weren't really paying attention to the fact that it's like, oh, you're just consuming a lot of white men's thoughts. Right. You weren't thinking about that. You just were reading the books because they appealed to your intellect. You weren't, and I didn't realize that I was also reading their culture into my faith. I didn't catch that either. So I was just reading the books. And so their perspectives became my perspectives. And then little by little, you begin to frown on Black pastors and theologians because they were more heart and hands. When I say heart and hands, it means like emotion and service and less head. Mm-hmm. And I was like, man, why aren't y'all thinking about this? And that's wrong. And why are you saying it like that? That doesn't make sense. And so I began to have this disdain and kind of prejudice toward Black teachers. Mm-hmm. So, you start thinking that the white man's ice is colder and their water's wetter, and you don't even realize it. So that attitude just starts to permeate everything that you do. And
we've got wetter water.
Yeah.
I'm just going to point out, I think it should be pointed out immediately. He said that before he knew the skin color of these guys, that he liked them and he liked what they had to say and he believed it was true and biblical. And it's when he learned their skin color,
that's when
it was now something to be, then it was a problem. What does that say about how he's judging truth?
True. I'm offended by the fact that, okay, one of the things that we as the highly melanated do a lot of is we do tend to lean toward emotionalism. And in preaching, let's stick specifically to preaching. So you'll hear, I'm sure you've seen it, everybody knows what I'm talking about, the atypical Black pastor and how he delivers a sermon. Now, that's just showmanship. That's just pure, unadulterated showmanship. I'm sorry. It most of the time they're not saying anything. 9 times out of 10, if you took their sermon and transcribed it, it wouldn't and just read it out loud, it would be the dumbest thing in the world if you did that. That being said, however, the idea that that is the only way that Black pastors preach is offensive to everybody. I can think of at least 9 off the top of my head without thinking really hard. Black pastors that preach faithfully God's word, that is emotion, that H.B. Charles, let's just throw H.B. Charles out there. I mean, the guy sings, he hoops and all that stuff, but you've never met a pastor that's more faithful to God's word. He winds up, he sings, he does all of that stuff, and he's faithful to God's word. So it doesn't have to be an either or. It can be a both and.
Yeah.
You got Dr. Bauckham. I mean, he's engaging, he's comical, he's interesting, and he's faithful to God's word. You don't have to have a both and. I'm sorry, either or. I'm sorry. It can be both and. So Lecrae, in my opinion, is ignorant. DearWokeC@gmail.com. I'm right here in Marietta, my friend. Lecrae lives not too far from me. So I'd gladly talk to him, but it's not going to change one thing that I'm saying tonight. However, he's ignorant, and he's placating to people, a crowd that wants to hear that wants to know, that wants to treat Christianity like the white man's religion. It's only European knowledge, all that kind of foolishness like that. So he's just feeding them. He's trading his victim coins to that crowd, and they're giving him attention and such of that nature. I'm glad we're not talking about his history, because I met 2 people at the G3 conference this weekend that know Lecrae intimately, and they had lots of problems with him and his history. So if you ever want to call me back and talk about his history, I got some phone numbers. We can have some other guests on here that have done concerts and work with him, and they have a whole different transcription of his past. But I'm sorry. This is just dumb. It's dumb, and it's issues for no reason.
Yeah.
Like there's not a reason for it. And therein is the problem that I see.
Yeah. And again, it's all framed in the idea of standpoint epistemology, the idea that he's leaning not on factual knowledge, he's not leaning on even experiential knowledge. he's leaning strictly on the idea that he has a viewpoint because of his intersectional position.
Right.
That, I cannot have. And so that elevates him to a higher position, and we need to listen to him because he will give us the truth that we cannot have. Now, I mean, you mentioned before that it's a separate religion. It can't not be a separate religion because that fundamentally attacks the truth claims of the Bible. Fundamentally.
Right, come on.
It is a necessarily different world view to say that Lecrae here has a knowledge that someone else cannot have and is accessed through this. It's Gnosticism. It's saying he is the master that has the secret knowledge.
So he said initially that he was listening to a lot of white men giving their theology to him, and that influence on him made him have a disdain for black preaching and black preachers. Yep. But he gave nothing in the way of substantive critiques of why the white theologians that he's referencing are unbiblical or wrong in any way. And I actually want to go back to one of Lecrae's early songs real quick. So this is from the song When the Music Stops. This was before Lecrae went woke. This is what he said. Discipleship is our call, but we make disciples. This is not a suggestion. Create disciples. The teaching is a process. It's not overnight. And it's not a stage and a mic. No, it's life on life. Christ walked with the 12, ate with the 12, talked with the 12, shaped with the 12, invested in them well. You could say that he made the 12. Who made many more? Who made plenty more? And now it's on you if there's any more. Okay, so that's straight out of the Bible. If you've read the Gospels, you know that that's straight out of the Bible. But today, in this, like for example, 2016, his song "Gangland," he says, "People out here fighting for equality, and I think they're owed some." So that's a pretty big shift, and it's pretty striking and telling that this biblical version of Lecrae, he says, is influenced by white theologians.
I would love for him to expound a little bit. Like, well, what is the problem with Charnock? What was the problem with Thomas Boston? What was the problem with John MacArthur? What was the problem that you had that you were, with Martin Lloyd-Jones? I'm reading a book by Martin Lloyd-Jones right here. Like, what was the problem? I would love for him to explain that. I don't think he could, but I would love it.
Yeah, I would love the opportunity to sit down with Lecrae and ask him these questions. Have a back and forth conversation. Because what he presents is truly insane. It's incoherent. It disagrees with the Bible. And that's not being mean. That's just pointing out that the Bible sets this standard and he is setting a different standard. They're in contradiction. What do you do with that? You have to address it.
Yep.
But even the idea that you have the ability to dismiss is a privilege, exactly. Right? Like you have the ability to not think about it. I cannot change my skin tone. I cannot live another day without recognizing my blackness, right? As soon as I, drive into a Wyoming gas station, or not a gas station, a Wyoming grocery store looking for some products for my hair, they're not going to be there. And once again, I'm reminded, I'm black and these products do not exist for me. As soon as I get on a plane on a foreign flight and I try to flip through the movies that are available, I don't see myself and I realize, I'm black. And so I can't turn that off. And what I think the notion of this kind of blessing or the ability to put the blinders on is because what my white brothers and sisters tend to think is that they don't have a culture. And that is an indicator of this blessing, this privilege, right? Is that you believe you don't have a culture. So when you go out to eat food, when you go out to eat fried rice with shrimp, you call it Chinese food. Why is it Chinese food and not normal food? Because your food is normal food. But if you go to China, all of a sudden that's normal. And what is your food? It's an indicator of your culture. And so I think that the blinders are on in terms of, well, we don't have a culture. Why can't everyone just see things from this vantage point? Well, that's a benefit that you have of being able to turn those off. Where as Black people, we can't turn that off. We can't just, close the curtain on it and just live our lives. We're always dealing with these realities. So again, I really, to the point that Dan made about lamenting and having a heart for what's going on, I also think putting, for my white brothers and sisters to put themselves in positions where they have to learn from their Black brothers and sisters, where they have to find people in leadership that they have to say, this is the voice that I've got to listen to because I don't know. And I've got to be okay with saying, I don't know. I've got to be okay with saying that though the world inundates me with my perspectives, because a lot of times our cultural narratives can guise themselves in the form of righteousness. You'll think you're right because everything else around you seems to agree with your perspective. And God has the right to critique that.
What is white culture? Like, a lot of this would be pushback. I have a friend of mine that really stresses that we have to have good definitions of terms. Like a conversation with Lecrae would take 2 weeks because we would have to go through all the terms that you're going to use and make sure we understand what you're going to be saying. So when you say Jesus, when you say salvation, when you say grace, we got to understand what you mean. So we're going to take the time. And sadly, I don't think anybody's ever pushed back on him, and he's gotten away with using terms that make no sense. They're just, when you think about it, you're like, what does that mean? What are you talking about? And nobody does that. So he's gotten this far afield, and nobody's actually asked him, hey, what do you actually mean by that?
Well, and I think one of the problems is he starts to talk, he talks around the concept.
Lots of it, yes.
So he's trying to prove, the idea of white privilege, and he talks around it. And it's the same thing we talked about earlier. This time he actually gives some more, it's more anecdotal evidence as opposed to strictly just random disconnected things. But it doesn't even come close to proving the point. Like his definition of, which he doesn't really define it, he doesn't define white privilege, but then all it really comes down to is like hair product selection at a gas station in Wyoming.
And I want you to just stop and think for a second. Somebody needs to ask him, like, okay, are you for real? I live in Metro Atlanta. There's a hair care place that my daughters go to that has 1,000 products per aisle. Do you really want a random gas station in Wyoming to carry product number 745 from aisle 5A? Do you really want that? Do you really think that they're going to do that? That's just ignorant.
And I got to be honest, when I go into a gas station in the middle of nowhere and see their selection of like shampoo,
right?
I'm not seeing that and saying, man, there are white people's shampoos. I'm looking at those and going, gosh, that is the cheapest garbage shampoo, and I would never use that.
Who's coming to a gas station? I bet you Lecrae also is never upset about that sketchy sushi at the Wyoming gas station. They're being ethnically diverse. Going to eat that sushi there. If you're going to eat that, man, get out of here. It's just dumb. Like, it's dumb and it's embarrassing that you think that these are the cases that white people should bend over backwards for, that people of less melanin should feel so level of guilt and shame because you have a culture, or you're called a majority for a reason. We're called a minority for a reason. You do realize that, right? So by default, a minority would not have the same influence as a majority. It's really that easy. There are more 6 foot plus men in the NBA than 5 foot. I mean, it's just, they are the majority. It really should not have to be spelled out that basic for him because he's smarter than that. But here we are, nonetheless.
And he says that. So going along with this, he says that white people have blinders on and they can't see why others, quote, can't see from this vantage point. So in Lecrae's mind, white people are just going about their day. You know, they go to their gas station in Wyoming and they've got the hair products that I like. And then they go onto an airplane and, ooh, a movie with all the characters that look like me. Life is so wonderful. And then I go to the grocery store. Oh, there's potato salad. It's so good for me.
Has raisins in it.
That is white. That is very white. And so it's like, so we're just blinded to all these ways that Lecrae is just being oppressed. It's so hard for him. I feel so bad.
You know what?
I wish I was as blissfully ignorant as Lecrae thinks I am, because that person sounds really happy.
They do. I'm gonna get in a lot of trouble for this, but I'm fine with this. DearWokeC@gmail.com. Here's an example. Like it does. For some reason or other, Lecrae is probably my age, so he's 40 plus. You're a whole 40 plus year old man with 3 kids, a wife, and an illustrious rap career. And you're honestly worried, complaining and lamenting that there's not enough people of high melanin in movies. And I've always said this before, representation is lazy, because they're basically saying that we can't come up with a good story. So what we'll do is we'll make the ethnicity of the character, or the gender of the character, or the sexual preference of the character, the story. And I will say this, and I'll stand by it, DearWokeC@gmail.com. The first Black Panther movie has a ton of Black people in it, and it was really good. The second Black Panther movie had a ton of Black people in it, and it was horrible. So your representation was right there. You had all the representation, you had all the ethnic groups. There were lots of boxes checked in those movies. But you know what it was? The story was horrible. So it's not primarily the ethnicity or the representation. It is the story, because you can learn a lot, and we've always seemed to have done it. We haven't had any problem in this society learning without necessarily seeing ourselves in books, in movies, and shows, and so forth. It's only a fairly new phenomenon where we have to see in order to learn something. And that's not common in our culture, in our society. But go ahead, Jordan. You're ready to jump on me.
I just want to say one thing. The problem with the second Black Panther movie is that there were not nearly enough Black trans disabled fat people.
Well, there you go. That was the problem. I also think they should have recast T'Challa, but we're not going to talk about that. They should recast. I mean, Chadwick Boseman was not the only character that ever. I mean, yeah, they should have swapped him out.
Yeah,
and they could have had him in. But anyway,
I do agree with you that the first one was far superior.
Yeah.
So, okay. So he says also that white people should learn from the voices of their Black brothers and sisters. Now, this, if you caught it, is textbook standpoint epistemology.
Yep.
And when you hear that phrase, learn from the voices, when you hear the woke use a lot of weird terms that nobody would like. Who in a normal conversation, just one-on-one with your buddy, be like, "What? I feel like you're not listening to my voice." It's like no one talks that way. But
no, I can think of one example, and that's your dad when he's really, really upset with you, and you're being an ignorant, dumb kid, and you're doing exactly the opposite of what he says. But the thing there is, that would be a weird phrasing of it for the intentional purpose of making it a weird phrasing, because you're trying to get the person's attention.
Okay, I'm a dad, and my kids, one of them is sitting right here next to me. She's come in my office like 9 times since I've been on this call. So what is it? You're not listening to my voice. President Firstborn, you're not listening to my voice. She said, oh. Oh.
Yeah.
Like
so,
I wouldn't say that. I agree. Like it sounds very dramatic, very romanticized. Like are you listening to me? Go do something. There's difference. But you're not listening to my voice. You're not making me valid. You're not making me seem heard or seen. There's never going to hear that said by me. You'll never hear it.
yeah, you're never going to hear it in a normal conversation. But when the woke use this voice terminology, what they're saying is that black people as a collective have a certain voice, women as a collective have a certain voice, gay people, trans people as a collective have a certain voice, and they have their common voice in solidarity of oppression that they are kind of only they have access to, and so that's why Lecrae says you have to listen to them, because if you're not in those groups, then you don't have access to those lived experiences as we've been talking about.
Yeah.
So you can see a clear example of standpoint epistemology there.
You want me to take the wheels off that bus for him real quick?
Oh, I like
Do it.
buses when they don't have wheels. They grind you a
Do it.
halt real fast.
So I'm gonna just take the wheels off that bus real quick. Following his logic, then they have to listen to me.
Now I don't know who to listen to.
There you go. We've created now a conundrum, because they're going to tell you that you don't listen to me, but you just said you had to listen to black voices, and my voice is black. And if you're not certain of it,
Hey.
it's black. It's real black.
Biden made it very clear, and Biden is the expert on this, obviously, that, I mean, if you don't vote for him, you're not black. There are certain actions that can take away your black card.
My black
Yeah,
card
so that's the problem.
is safe.
That is the problem, Jason. You have you're not, the problem is you're not authentically black. You see, as Ayanna Pressley says, we don't want black faces that don't want to be black voices. So so you've internalized your white oppression. That's the problem.
Interesting. So
Wow.
there's going to be a lot of problems with that, and I think, and again, I think what they're wanting to do, they speak in sound bites, they speak in these little snippets, catchphrases, and sometimes I play critical race theory bingo. And when I hit 10,000 subscribers, I'm gonna do another series of critical race theory bingo, where we just listen to people and we just check off, try to get bingo. But they don't want you to actually think about what they're saying. They don't want you to sit there and consider, well, what is a black voice, and why is one black voice more important or more valid than another black voice?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, I think it's adorable how many black people who speak on behalf of black people are not married to a black spouse, but they tend to. But I am married to a black spouse and have little black babies, but my voice is not valid, but theirs is valid, and they don't have black spouse. Or now, if I had a white spouse, they would immediately put that in the forefront and invalidate everything I said. But I actually have more blackness in my family than you do. So how is my voice less valid? See, I want you to just think. That's all I want you to do. Like, just think. But even better than that, jettison the whole foolishness, push that whole craziness off the cliff, and stick with the gospel, because the gospel is freeing. Whereas I don't have to sit there and go through all this gymnastics and theological hoops with Jordan and Kyle. We're just brothers in Christ.
Amen.
Amen. And the
You know what
truth
that
will set you
reminds
free.
me of? It reminds me of Philippians. So Paul's responding to, because they keep coming after him, the Judaizers. He's responding to the Philippians, but then responds directly to them and the accusations they're making against him. And they're challenging his Jewishness.
Correct.
And what's Paul's response? He goes, hey, here's all the reasons that I'm more Jewish than you. I am a Jew of Jews beyond what you could ever hope to achieve. And how does he end that? He goes, and that's all meaningless. That's all a bunch of nonsense, because it's all Christ. It's Christ at work. And boom, that's it right there. I mean, Paul absolutely shatters this idea of intersectionality, absolutely shatters critical race theory, absolutely shatters standpoint epistemology. He says, None of that matters. It's all Christ. So, guys,
Amen.
any last thoughts as we kind of pull this up to a close? Anything that we haven't really covered, or final comments that could get us in trouble that should be said?
My goal is to get kicked off the platform. So, no, the gospel is better, man. The scriptures are better. And for those people that embrace the woke ideology, please understand that the scriptures say that the gospel, that God's name is blasphemed because of you. And I'm saying you. So dearwokec@gmail.com. If you have a question, comment, or concern, please email management. But it's your fault that the gospel is inept. It's your fault that people look at the gospel as not able. Sure, it'll save your soul in the great by and by, but it does nothing here on earth. That's your fault, because you're adding to the gospel critical race theory. You're adding to the gospel other adverbs and other modifiers that were never intended, and it's your fault. So,
yeah, amen. And that's why we're doing what we're doing. We're out here not because, look, we have fun with it. We try and take these hard, heavy subjects and add a little levity into it. Because one, I don't know about you guys, but personally, this stuff grinds me down. Doing the research, producing these kind of things, it grinds me down. It makes me feel awful. I don't like seeing all this. I don't like seeing all the problems. I want things to be good. So I want it to be a little bit lighter because of how heavy the subject is. But I don't ever want to compromise that. So yeah, we're going to inject some levity. But our whole purpose out here is to give you truth, is to challenge error, and to point you to Christ. Because Christ is greater. Christ can, whatever issues that there might be between two humans, Christ can overcome it. Because if Christ can overcome the infinite offense that we have committed against him, then your tiny little things that you have between another person are nothing.
And most of them are made up anyway.
Most of them are. That's one of the things. As you age, one of the biggest points of wisdom you learn as you grow older is most of the times I get upset with someone else, I'm the primary contributor.
Yeah.
Because frankly, when you're... I don't know if you guys have experienced this, but when I'm not the primary contributor, I generally don't actually get offended.
That's
yeah,
right.
they did something that they did something that's a problem. Like well. I get offended when I have something to gain.
Right. There we go.
Exactly.
See, we're getting close to the heart of the matter here with the woke, because from the biblical perspective, we have been forgiven in Christ. Jesus Christ lived the perfect life that you and I could never live. God entered his own creation, died on the cross, took the punishment for our sins, was buried, rose on the third day. And I don't know about you guys, I would venture to guess it's probably similar. I have sinned against God probably 100 times plus today. And yet he forgives all of that and still loves me and still forgives me and is still patient with me. But this woke theology will keep you in a perpetual state of feeling aggrieved and feeling like you've been cheated and feeling like that somebody's holding something out on you, that people, you need to gain access to things that other people have. And it breeds envy, bitterness, and unforgiveness. As my esteemed colleagues are saying, go with the truth, go with the gospel, go with Christ. It'll set you free.
Amen. Well, Jason, thank you so much for coming on with us. This was
thank you for having me.
A really great conversation. I think that we hit down into some really serious things, both with Lecrae, but in general. So I hope this is useful. I hope this is helpful to you all listening. And if it is, again, interact with it. Share it with other people. Like, comment, subscribe, those things. Not for the sake of growing our platform, but for getting this information out there. And do not forget, go over onto YouTube and search Dear Woke Christian and check out what Jason has. He's got some great content responding to these kind of things as well. But
before we go anywhere, hold on.
What did I say?
In honor of Lecrae looking for hair care products in a random Wyoming gas station, my daughter would like to say hello. So come on, President Firstborn. Here's President Firstborn. And her hair is all over the place.
Hi, President Firstborn.
Hey. Yeah, my hair low-key is all over the place. But speaking of hair care products, I would like to know I did not get my products from a gas station in Wyoming. I got them from the beauty supply store that is 2 miles away. So thank you very much. $30.
Go away.
Oh,
$30.
Those are expensive.
They're expensive. Bye, baby. Goodbye. Why are you still here? Go away. You're not listening to my voice. You're invalidating my parental voice. You didn't think that? You didn't know I was gonna pull that one out, did you, Jordan?
That was some good stuff.
And she's invalidating.
She should have gone to the gas station in Wyoming though. They got some pretty nice.
I heard they got some.
I mean, that's what you see here. That's right. Where that's coming from.
That's where he gets his from, the Wyoming gas station. Please, I have to go back and listen to that because if he really truly said that, I might have to make a mockery of that. Because wait, he really said he looked for hair care products I have to go back and listen to that.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
Definitely worth a re-listen.
I'm pulling it up right here. Yep, it's right there. Okay. Like that makes no sense. That's so silly. Like, you're just being silly, man. Like, you're just a silly man, as my kids like to say.
So I hope this was a useful episode to you. And, God bless you all. Go be in Christ. Don't be found in woke ideologies and nonsense. And especially, don't go woke.